I get some interesting emails and questions in my inbox. Turns out I'm the last surviving relative of a prince. Take that, sis. All I need to do is give them my bank information. I'm cashing in, so you probably won't see me next week for the next podcast. But before I go, I do want to answer some emails. Let's get to it. Welcome. Another edition of IBF On Demand. I'm still in my bunker somewhere in Kentucky. You can still send me comments, though, questions, glowing praises to Eric at IBF.org. That's Eric at IBF.org. This is IBF On Demand, and my name is Eric Wilson. We have a sponsor here as well, Arkiva, your one-plan S&OP software solution. If you do have a question for them, reach out to them at arkiva.com, and you can find them. Officially, it's been a year now. We've been doing these podcasts, just over a year. Sadly, I'm just now getting to some of those emails, so I apologize. Don't worry, I'm going to do much better 2021, getting to on a regular basis, so keep those great questions up. This is IBF.org, IBF On Demand, and we're a membership organization here to foster the growth of demand planning, forecasting, predictive analytics, S&OP related fields. And the best way we can do it is hear what you got to say. So please keep those questions coming in now. So we got a lot of great questions to filter through today. I'm going to answer them. Today we're going to hit on topics like KPIs, data cleansing, how to get approval from, for your another planner, or how to deliver those bad news, and much more. So stay with us today. Just past the few minute mark. Stick with us. Hear some of these great questions, and let's hear some answers that I have to them. First question. Hey, Eric, I've been watching your podcast for a while now and reaching out to say hi. What's your goal with podcasting? And is there anything you're struggling with your podcast? From a podcast marketer and salesperson, try to sell me something on LinkedIn. So I get all kinds of emails. But it was actually a good question I wanted to lead off with, because there is a question of why exactly are we doing this? There's a couple reasons. One, entertain, and the second, hopefully some insights. As I mentioned, we're a membership organization, IBF, 50,000 members globally in these related fields. And we want to provide best practices, insights, and information to them. We're doing a lot of different formats. We got the Journal of Business Forecast. We do conferences. We've got town halls. We have other types of articles written on demand-planning.com. There's a library of wealth of information. We wanted to add to that medium one more way of doing it. So this is one more way we can provide that information to you. And my goal is, if I can make just one person smile, I've failed miserably. Really, the goal is to really provide relative content to people on an ongoing basis and hopefully make more than just that one person smile. Next question came in from DB. It says, hello, Eric. Happy 2021. Happy 2021 to you. Can you please let me know what are the basic KPIs that should be reviewed in a demand review meeting in an S&OP process? How should these KPIs support business KPIs? Wonderful question. The main KPIs we're looking at from a demand planning process generally are a MAPE, mean absolute percentage error, or we prefer a weighted MAPE, a WMAPE, or a weighted mean absolute percentage error. Other ones are mean percentage error and a MAD, mean average deviation. And what you're looking at is those key KPIs, like a weighted MAPE or a mean percentage error, at different lags and at different aggregations. Those generally are the most commonly used KPIs. And there's a lot of great information at IBF.org about all the different KPIs that you can use, and specifically those. Those are generally used internally and to express uncertainty. There should be a way to help find where you have issues and help discover where to focus your attention. That's why I said most of those are internal issues and expressing uncertainty you have in your inherent in your data, in your forecasting models, and something of that sort. Most of them look at where they're going to be the magnitude and the direction of your error. I don't like the conversations necessarily being about uncertainty and forecast error. Is why I don't want to have the uncertainty settled on. So when I'm looking at what KPIs to review in a demand review meeting, I usually go away from those type of KPIs. I prefer to have the conversation go to a forecast value add from a demand review meeting standpoint. Forecast value add, I did a whole podcast on that talked really about the benefits of forecast value add. And that focuses on the process. It focuses on the inputs. And it focuses really, are you getting the right information? Obviously, you're going to have to look at a, MAPE, weighted MAPE, mean percentage error from here's ultimately what we're doing from a consensus. But the different steps in there can be measured as a forecast value add and reported as a forecast value add. That gets people's attention on the right thing. Are we adding value? Is the process taking away value? It focuses people on the right attention. The second part of it is the overall S&OP process is supporting the business KPIs. That was a great part of your question you had, is you want your KPIs to support the business. You should see a direct correlation to your uncertainty, your ultimate forecast accuracy, and what you're doing as far as service, as far as cash, as far as cost. You should see a direct correlation. IBF's done studies and looked at 15% improvement on forecast accuracy is actually going to bring 3% to the bottom line. It's going to improve your, customer service by 1 to 2%. It's going to improve cash. It's going to improve cost, but it brings ultimately about 3% to the bottom line. What I'd recommend is a great podcast I did with Brahm from Surventure that on the supply chain triangle, which talked about the really strategic aspect of KPIs. He's got a new book on as well. It's a supply chain triangle for your KPIs. You can check that book coming out as well. It's a great opportunity to understand really that cost, cash, service, how those KPIs are driving your business, and then you can take your forecast accuracy, your process aspect of your FVA, and translate those into business KPIs for your organization as well. So great question, DP. Next question came in from Carl. I'm a huge fan of your podcast, and thank you so much for your insights. I am in the beginning stages of gathering information so I can determine what best-in-class demand planning departments are. Wonderful. So if you're looking for exactly what a best-in-class demand planning process is, question, no matter if you're just doing 2+2, or if you're looking at really predicting the impact of demand sensing of a Taylor Swift tweet or something of that sort, no matter how complex you're making it, whether it's the most basic, process to a really complex process, there really is some basic steps and principles. No matter what you're doing, it requires a best-in-class or best-in-breed for data collection, transforming that data, modeling that data, analyzing that data, and telling a story with that data. Those are the 5 basic steps. Predictive analytics, basic demand planning, no matter what you do, those are the 5 basic steps that you're doing. So really your goal is to become best in breed in each of those steps and each of those processes. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is gain a consensus with it's an unconstrained, unbiased view of what's going to happen in the future and provide information people can turn into insights inside your organization. If you understand your goal, you understand those processes, and you get those processes right, that's where you're working to best in class. As far as what all those things are, is from a people, process, data, analytics, technology, there's a lot to unfold. And I said we can do multiple podcasts, and we probably will over the next year, on what are some best in breed in some of those different areas. What I'd recommend for you right now is there is the maturity assessment we have available. There's one online you can see right now from an S&OP standpoint. So you can go to ibf.org, check out the assessment. You can do an S&OP self-assessment right now. There's also an assessment that IBF can help you with from a demand planning department or functional capabilities. It looks at demand planning function, predictive analytics function from that same people, process, analytics, data, technology. It's not a self-assessment. It's more of that unbiased third-party assessment of where you are. So if you're really, really interested in an assessment of where you are and what best-in-class is demand planning, I'd highly recommend that assessment. You can reach out to info@ibf.org, mention you want the demand planning assessment, or find me at eric@ibf.org. I can definitely point you in the right direction as well. Might even put some information down below in the link that you can really find those, because there's a lot of things to look at from that. But basically, it goes back to those 5 basic steps: the collecting the data, transforming the data, modeling the data, analyzing the data, and storytelling with the data. That encompasses people, process, data, and technology. So there's a lot in there, and there's a lot of different attributes and components in there, but just focus on each one and make sure you're doing the best you can in each one of those. So hopefully, Carl, answered your question a little bit more. If not, please, I said email eric@ibf.org. I can help you one-on-one, and we can work on that. Or anybody else besides you, Carl, that wants to look at that, I can help you out with as well. So next question from Augustin. First of all, love the content you put out on a demand planning. It really has inspired me to help me be a better professional. Well, thank you. So how do you justify to the executive team in hiring of a junior demand planner? I've been there. I've been the same thing. I've been a department of one, starting in an organization, creating a demand planning function and building that over time. And each time, you really have to sell it to the executive team of why you need more headcount. What's the benefit of bringing someone else on board? Because I mentioned this in another podcast. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. Being that individual contributor sometimes inside organizations and doing a great job of it, they're like, well, you don't need more individuals. You're doing it already, and we're already getting the job done. How do you justify getting another one? So it's a great question, Augustin. First of all, I want to look at is your perspective. Why do you need another demand planner, a junior demand planner? And usually things are going to come up and say, what was too many SKUs? I can't manage all these SKUs. I can't do a deeper dive that I'd want to. You know, I'm not being able to it just getting too much work. It's too much chaos to try to manage on my own. That's your perspective. And I understand your perspective. I said, I've been in your shoes. It's the same perspective I had. But let's flip the table. What's their perspective? Their perspective is, what's this going to cost me? How can I get more by bringing someone else on board? If I'm already getting the job done with one, why do I need to bring somebody else on? There's an added cost to that. That's their perspective. So basically, I can care less what your perspective is. Yes, it may be true. You have to meet them on what their reality is and meet them on their perspective. Can you say hiring X will save the company Y? Can you say that hiring X is going to free up this so you can get more Y out of it? They already know the X. You want a new junior employee. You want more money for your function, your department. What's the Y you can do to justify them? They're going to want to know how much does it cost them. Have that information available to them. What will it cost them? What is the total cost of bringing on someone new? What's the cost if they don't? How are they going to be able to get more? What exactly does that more mean? And what's that mean to little dollars, little time savings, other things? Meet them in their reality is the key that what you want to be able to do. And I already said, a lot of times we're our own worst enemies because we are that individual contributor. I'm not saying do less on your job, but what you need to do is brag sometimes about what you do and what more you can accomplish. Don't be afraid to come in with saying, this is our capabilities if you gave me these resources. Don't be afraid to come in with those things, because if you don't believe it, they're not going to believe it as well. And I'm not talking fluff. I'm not saying we can do this, because fluff, it's going to be worse in the long run if you bring this person and you don't deliver. But you honestly believe you can do more. You can improve your accuracy. If you honestly come with those realities to them of what you can accomplish and what's it mean to them as far as a cost cash service type of conversation. Try to tie it to things that they understand. New items, new markets, etc. Why are things becoming more complex now? Because we've grown our SKUs by this many in the past year, and we haven't eliminated these. Because we've increased the new markets. Because our market share has increased this much. Our revenue's increased. Tie the pain you're feeling into things they can relate to. Now tie the benefits into those same things. Now that we have these new items, I can do this much more looking at focus on this. Now that we have these new revenue, we can improve forecast accuracy, which means this much more cost savings, this much more customer service. Goes back to the previous question I just had. Tie it to business KPIs. Ultimately, what you're going to have to do is create that business case. You're going to have to be in their language. You're going to have to talk about ROI. It's an investment. What's your return on the investment? Am I going to bring in a planner that's going to be 3 years, or is it going to be 18 months, or is it going to be months later that I can see real benefits and return on this investment? Understand the questions they may have ahead of time. Try to answer those questions, and then remember, be patient. I had a whole thing about how to really talk to executives. Go back on that podcast as well. Check out that one because a lot of these same things you're doing is going to be how to deliver those news and how to explain those to executives. Next question came in from Rita. It says, Dear Eric, this is Rita. I already knew that. I just said that. I really enjoyed listening to your podcast, where I learned new information, insights, and took actions in real life that worked. Regarding the episode about how to deliver bad news, do you have any suggestions on how to explain bad KPIs in 2020? Great question. And I think this actually brings to light another question as well that I'm hearing. I'm getting a few people on how do I create my benchmarks for 2021 based on 2020. What KPIs should I have for 2021? So there's a couple different things here. One, you had some bad KPIs in 2020. You're delivering them now. Maybe at the beginning of the year, you had this goal that I was going to improve forecast accuracy by 10%, 5%. So my MAPE was going to go from this to this. You didn't hit your goal. How do you go and talk to your manager saying, okay, yeah, I know I didn't hit this goal. Why? And then comes to the next question of setting those goals now for 2021. What should be your goals? I can see this. We didn't hit our targets because things happened. They understand things happen. At the same time, those were maybe impossible goals then because of what happened. The problem is a lot of times the goals they set. A few questions ago, I had the questions on what KPIs for a demand review meeting. When I talked about that, I said, I don't want the conversation to be on uncertainty and forecast accuracy. The same way for my targets and goals. I don't want my targets to be on uncertainty that a lot of time is out of control and accuracy, which you have a control of in forecast, but you don't have control over a lot of the drivers to it sometimes. I don't want that conversation to be, because when you get into those weeds, they don't understand that side of the conversation a lot of times, and you're measured on something that's really out of your control, an impossible goal. The better thing you could have done a little bit late now, is have your goals set on forecast value add. If here's the inherent uncertainty in my data set, did I improve upon that? What would have happened if I wasn't here? Here's what your forecast would have been. Because I'm here, I improved the forecast by so much %. And next year, I want to improve upon it even more. I'm happy to take that as a objective and target. If I'm measuring myself on how I'm improving upon the inherent uncertainty in my data set, or what it would have happened if I didn't add my modeling capabilities, my inputs, my consensus meetings, and drive to that, forecast consensus unconstrained forecast number. Here's what is the new number. Here's my forecast value add. Basically, forecast value add is going to take, if you don't want to go back and watch the podcast on that, or go back and check all the literature we have on forecast value add, FVA percentage. What you're looking at is what your MAPE or weighted MAPE would have been on a naive forecast. Naive forecast could have been a random walk, seasonal random walk, which is just the last period or your prior year period could have been it. And that would have been a good one. If you're looking at your seasonal random walk, guess what? You're going to find a lot of uncertainty there because of what happened with COVID. A naive forecast could be something that's easy to recreate too. Could be something as a demand variation index, which is your variation of your data set from a mean. Or similar to like a coefficient of variation, except you're not squaring the errors or squaring the deviation. So it's just simply taking your normal variation from a mean. That shows you what uncertainty you have in your data set. That can be compared to a MAPE. So when you're comparing it, you can say, here's what my MAPE is, here's what the normal demand variation is. I'm improving it by this percentage. That is a goal now you can improve upon year over year. It doesn't help you for why you're going to go explain your bad KPIs of 2020. Good luck on that one. Lori, everything we talked about delivering bad news, Lori's going to, if you watch that podcast, Rita, Lori, take that and translate it in delivering your bad KPIs. But the problem is you're in a no-win situation with that. You have to change your KPIs going forward. And that's for everybody setting those targets for 2021 now as well. You're not explaining bad KPIs, you're explaining uncertainty. If you get down in the weeds talking about what my MAPE was last year and what my MAPE is this year, you're talking about uncertainty. It's a conversation you can have, and it's a good conversation to have to explain why things are different this year than last year. But then you need to translate and how you're adding value to the process. That's when you get into your forecast value add and those type of KPIs. So Lori, you need to change your language if at all possible. Hope that helped, Rita. Doesn't help much for you delivering the bad news, but hope you can at least get on track going forward. Continuing through the question, I said I had a year's worth of questions to go through here. So we got a few questions, and there's a lot I'm still not getting to that I'll be able to answer in an email. So please let me know any questions you have going forward. Next question came from Jeff. Says, hi, Eric. I'm an active member of IBF. Congratulations. Kudos to you. Welcome to the family, being part of the tribe. I have enjoyed your podcast and look forward to your book, Predictive Analytics for Business Forecasting, which shoulder it's on, but check that book out. I have a quick question. I went on an IBF search of best practices around data cleansing for modeling. Not able to find a lot. Can you help me point me in the right direction? That is an actually very good question, and I have noticed that myself. Most things when you look at data cleansing for the purposes of modeling generally talk about it at a high level. They talk about, you have outliers or you have missing data, and they don't get into the details a lot of times about what exactly to do with it. So I understand, there's some gaps probably in our library of that. And if anybody has some great information you want to write an article on that, I'm more invited. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to write an article on this. I'll probably have it in the next Journal of Business Forecasting. Come out in the spring edition. So thank you, Jeff. You've inspired an article for the next Journal of Business Forecasting. And since you're a member of IBF, you actually get that journal, access to it online, and a physical copy sent to your house. So, Jeff, this article is for you. Look for that coming up. Everybody else who's not a member, become a member and you can get the same access. But I know you want the information now. You're listening to this podcast for tangible insights and a little bit of entertainment. So first of all, giving you a little bit of information, maybe a little more concrete information on what to do about some data cleansing. First, understand why the missing variable or outlier and adjust using inputs. That's the first thing you can do. So it's not really rocket science. If you have an outlier, if you have a missing variable, if you have something anomaly in your data set that you can identify visual data visualization. There's other ways you can visualize it. Let's say you already know about this outlier. Try to truly understand that outlier. If you can go in and figure out, yeah, it's because marketing did this, because of this constraint, because of this outside market condition. If you can find out the cause of those outliers and put something tangible to it, that is the easiest and best adjustment you can do. Now, the problem is sometimes you're using assumptions to that. But if it's a consensus assumption you come to, sometimes it's not a bad assumption to make to it. We did this promotion and we had a 8% lift because we know this, and I can see, yeah, it looks that way in the data as well. Okay, I'm going to take 8% off this because we're never going to repeat this promotion again. That's a consensus adjustment that can be made to an outlier. So first, try to understand exactly why the value is missing or why an outlier exists and adjust that way. Secondly, understand the data. If it is a one-off or if it's a new isolated pattern, this is key as well. If it's one-off, if it's something that may not happen again, you can then prune. Prune is capping it, taking the number down, raising the number up to a certain level. It's pruning. It's cutting it off or raising it up to get to a certain number. For one-offs, pruning a lot of times is the best methodology to do it. If it's a new isolated pattern, so one-off could be, example, if I'm looking at 4 months, in 1 month it raises, that's a one-off. An isolated pattern may be it goes up for 1 month, goes down the second month because of a promotion. Guess what? That happens a lot. Now it's not an isolated event, it's a pattern. If it's an isolated pattern that won't repeat itself, now opposed to pruning, instead of pruning the top and then raising the bottom, it's better to look at smoothing techniques. Smoothing techniques will take an average over, instead of just the one, I'm going to take the periods before and after, or take these two periods, average them together, and come up with a number. So you're looking at more of averaging techniques or smoothing type techniques sometimes when you're looking at longer periods and adding that data inset, or looking at previous year, adding those data into your data set to help smooth as well. But you're looking at more smoothing opposed to pruning if it's isolated patterns. So if it's a one-off, a single point, prune. If it's multiple points, an isolated pattern, look at smoothing. Finally, you need to try to understand the impact of anything you do. Sometimes it's best not to adjust. Sometimes the data is telling you something you need to understand. So your knee-jerk reaction shouldn't always be pruning and smoothing historic data. There's a lot of good things you can do from a cleansing standpoint, but some of the best things you can do sometimes is nothing at all. So understand that is an option for you, and sometimes that is the best option as well. Wanted to get through as many as possible, so keeping this going. Notice we're starting to run out of some time. So next question is, Dan, have you predicted how many book copies you will sell? Great question, Dan. And a matter of fact, I did try. I used a chain ratio model using features of sales of the Fundamentals of Business Forecasting book, which is a standard book by Dr. Jane. And people who generally take the ACPF exam, this is the textbook for that more advanced exam. So looking at, those features and then pricing as another one, I put those together and the answer was 42 because that's the answer for all things. Of course, we doubled that in the first day and it was released. So my MAPE right now is around 77%. So FYI, I'm not doing that great. And the last part, this is a joke, so don't take me serious on any of those points. I did try to forecast, and there's a limited run, just so you understand on this book. We did forecast how many we're going to sell, and we did a limited first run. IBF has actually published this book. They did a limited first run. They have some at Amazon that's using them as a distributor. So there's a limited number there at Amazon, and there's a limited number in our warehouse at IBF. So the first edition is going to be a limited run to see exactly how sales go. It's doing phenomenal. So thank you guys very much. You can find it at ibf.org/books. You can find the special introductory offer there now as well. It's a great price. You can find it there. It ships within the next day or so. It's a phenomenal. We're getting great feedback. Love to hear your inputs. It's Predictive Analytics for Business Forecast. Great book. So thank you, Dan, for asking that question. It was a fun question. And actually, we did do some forecasting at the beginning, and we're surpassing our thoughts on that. So if you want a copy, you better get it soon before we run out of the first printing. Lorna, I enjoy watching your podcast and finding little things on your desk and behind you. They're like Easter egg hunt. Thank you. I call them Easter eggs. So thank you very much, Lorna. Question, is that a green screen behind you or an actual wall? Neither. It's actually a backdrop that we got. So it's not a real wall, but it's not a green screen either. These are actually a real set. I want to thank Scott, my producer. He's the one that put this set together. That's a banner. He does all the little things. I place the Easter eggs. And actually one of the most difficult parts of this podcast is to figure out what things I'm going to place behind me. That's harder than the content sometimes. But figuring out exactly the little Easter eggs that I place so you notice them. So thank you, Lorna, for noticing them. I'm going to keep that up. It really becomes the hardest part of but it's worth it to get this, that someone is actually noticing my Captain Americas or my llama from Fortnite or something of that sort when I'm doing different ones. So thank you for noticing. Got a mailbox here today for my mail call. But I really have to give credit to Scott. He's the magician behind the camera. I mean, these are little trinkets. You can only do so much with me. And he makes this look and sound good every other week. So I want to thank Scott. He's really the true magician behind the scenes. Check out ibf.org. There's a lot of great information. You can usually find all the questions, your answers already there, or demand-planning.com. There's a lot of good peers and practitioners writing great articles, so check them out. Let me know if I can help. I promise I'll get to your questions sooner than a year from now. So contact me at eric@ibf.org. That's eric@ibf.org. I want to thank Arkiva, your one-plan S&OP software solution. Continue to like, share, subscribe. And I'd love to hear your comments. Let me know that you're listening. Comment down below. And the final, don't forget, wash your hands.